Happy holidays! Welcome to the Shaman and the Mermaid December edition. We're coming to you from Karma Yoga Center here in Denver, Colorado. Hope you all had a beautiful winter solstice time, and we're excited and a little frazzled for our report.
There's a lot going on. We're coming up to a giant conjunction that is actually going to happen after the length of what we're talking about of the report. Michael will give you a little bit more about that, but that energy is building, and that's part of that frazzle. But we're trying to give you this report in enough time so that maybe you can use the energy instead of getting frazzled to come into a really beautiful alignment with yourself and do some great soul work that is also potential at this time instead of being frazzled.
Should I have not said we're frazzled?
No, it's truth, and that's a big part of what needs to be going on now is truth be spoken. And we'll bring that up when we talk about Mercury. That has a lot of aspects this time. Mercury is a big influencer in this next 2 weeks. And if you haven't been tuning into our reports, we do our reports on the full moon and new moon, so we talk about that whole span of energy that's happening in between. The first one, the obvious one that's coming about is a new moon in Capricorn, and it happens on Christmas Day, December 25th. And this is a big particular energy because it's also a solar eclipse. You want to talk about that?
Yes, and we normally make announcements at the end, but I'm going to slip one in here. That on January 12th here at Karma Yoga Center, we will be talking about the astrological year of 2020.
Frazzled!
2020 and beyond. And so we're going to be referencing in today's report. But if you want more on this, we'll be talking for 2 hours at our studio. It's open to the public to come in and learn about all these things more in depth.
It's big this year, guys. It's really big. And we've been talking about it in past reports, like this big alignment that's coming up. Well, like Michael said, January 12th is when it really kicks off, and we're in the wake of it right now.
Okay, so this solar eclipse is called an annular solar eclipse. Annular is the Greek word for ring, like a ring on the finger, my wedding ring. And the moon is as far away from the earth as it gets during this eclipse, so it doesn't completely cover the sun, so there'll be a ring of fire, Johnny Cash style, around the sun. You won't be able to see this eclipse, though, if you're here in the United States. It's only visible from Europe all the way through the Pacific Islands on December 25th or 26th if you're living over there.
But we'll feel it.
But we will feel it. It will be happening at 10:13 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Denver time. That's when the eclipse happens, the full solar eclipse. And this is a really potent one. I mean, we say that a lot, but it is potent for several reasons. It's happening very close to this Pluto-Saturn alignment that we've been talking about for a year. That's going to be happening 12 days afterward, or 14 days afterwards. And it's with Jupiter, the Sun, the Moon, and the south node of the Moon. They're all hanging out in this one point in the sky. And it's in Capricorn. And Capricorn energy, when it's in balance, has to do with doing things in the right way. Good path, red road. It's following the wisdom of the ancestors and the elders that knew how to do their earth walk in alignment with the earth, in alignment with the natural cycles of the seasons, in alignment with the natural way that human beings connect to their spirituality.
And to each other.
Walking
in the right way with each other.
And so this eclipse is looking at that energy, but in particular it's looking at what's out of balance with that energy. And so a big word for this eclipse is society. How is society and communities out of balance with interpersonal relationships, with our relationships to our greater structures that we've built? And the big buzzword is it has to do with the patriarchy. It's not that the masculine energy is bad itself. It's been misused for 6,000 years. The masculine energy, we all have it, we all need it. It's what's essential to go out there and put into action our soul's purpose. That's a really great use of the masculine energy. A really bad use of the masculine energy is to oppress others, suppress others, repress others, put others in a situation of war, use greed, use lust in bad ways. And so this eclipse is saying all that needs to be cleaned up.
An eclipse means to clip or to cut, in its literal translation. So if you take what's happening at this particular time, the sun and the moon and the earth are in alignment with each other. It's giving you a chance to cut out, as they align, any of the things that are not healthy for you and for the collective. And that's going to lead to our theme this week, because Capricorn energy is so much about society, about the other, about the collective. We are asking us all to not only look at ourselves at this eclipse of what needs to be cut away or cleaned up or cleared out, but what is good for the good of the whole, what needs to be cut away, cleared out, kind of that karmic cleanse for our collective society. So not just your little town or city that you live in, not just your state, not just your country, but the whole globe. An eclipse energy affects everybody, not just the individual and not just the area you're in, but it's everywhere. And so this is an alignment saying, hey, everybody, time to clean up our act in those areas that Michael was talking about, around kind of that oppression and repression, some of those government structures. It's all right there in your face anyway. You're looking at it on social media, you're seeing what needs to happen. You see Mother Earth showing up in the way of, hey, you need to clean up your act. If you don't, I will. And so we need to maybe look inward at how can we better show up to help the good of the whole, not just show up for ourselves. So our theme this time is cultivate a conscious community for yourself. Cultivate conscious community.
It's a brilliant, well, I guess that's patting ourselves on the back, but it's a brilliant summarization of all this Capricorn energy and all these planets in Capricorn. I want to add that the eclipse, if we could be in the place where the eclipse is happening, the moment the eclipse happens, when the sky goes dark, those who are in that area will see the planet Jupiter sitting right next to the sun. And Jupiter, wherever it comes into play, makes things bigger, more expansive. And Jupiter has to do with having a vision. What's going to the horizon? Where are we going? What's our vision quest? What do we want to do? And so while this eclipse is saying, cut those old karmic ties from the oppressive past, build conscious community, it's also saying, make sure to keep your vision, people. It's tough when we're going through chaotic shifts or times of change and cleaning up karmas and things are dying and falling away. If you don't have a stable vision of where you're going, it can be really unsettling or unbalancing. One of our teachers and people that we connect to is Black Elk from the Lakota tradition. And one of the things he had written that he most regretted about his life is that he had this great vision as a young man, and that he drifted away from his vision until the end of his life. And he said he wished he would have kept focus on that point, and it would have given him more stability and more harmony in his life. And so it's important, listening to our elders and ancestors that go before us, that we need to keep a vision during this time. We're creating conscious community, but what does that look like? Have a vision for it. Write it down on a piece of paper, journal it, sing it, make YouTube videos about it, put it out on your Facebook page. That's what we're doing. That's what we're calling in. So
when we say cultivate conscious community, what do you want to surround yourself with? It's important that that's what he's saying. Identify that. Have the vision of what you want to be surrounded with. And if you think about it for yourself, do you want to be surrounded with loving kindness, generosity, helpfulness, servitude, people who are caring and compassionate? And then if you're not centered in that right now, if that isn't your community, then you begin to cultivate that. And you, by holding the vision of what that is to you, those words that I just said, or words that are similar, that have that consciousness to it, when you hold that in your heart, when you hold that dear to you, when you start to really put it as a vision, you start to be a magnet and it comes to you. And that's a big way to cultivate that conscious community. And the alignment right now with all those planets in the sign of Capricorn that is about justice and fairness and community and doing things in right way for the good of the whole, it's saying this is the time more than ever. And put an eclipse on it is cut away all the crap. Cut away all the lies and the deception and the falsehoods and the fakeness and the pieces of your own self as well as the people around you that are not bringing you the best energy. Cut away the toxic people, cut away the toxic food, cut away the toxic activities and thinking and judgments and criticisms. Start to bring in the people who want to do things that are good for you, like permaculture and developing networks that serve each other. In the old days, we used to have villages, small gatherings of people that were in like-minded way. They shared a common goal of harvesting the crops and sharing them in a collective way, kind of a co-op, if you would. And so there was the baker in the town, and there was the merchant in the town, and there was the banker in the town, and everybody brought a piece, their gift, to the good of the whole, and everybody served each other. If you needed bread, you went to the baker, etc. Now we're in too much of a competition with each other, and our villages are divided, and we don't have that communal sense as much anymore, and we need to return back to the villager's way, where we share our gifts. And if you're a baker and somebody else is a baker, instead of being in competition to each other, see if you can collaborate so that you can co-share your gifts and skills and serve the greater good at the same time. And in the same way, you'll bring in enough abundance for yourself. You don't need to have more abundance than the other baker or more abundance than the other person. That's a ideology that has come in with this top-down kind of conception of our society. The society is for everybody. Everybody needs the good. Everybody needs abundance. And we have plenty on this beautiful earth that we live in for everybody to have what they need. But we don't have enough for everybody's greed, as the saying goes. And I attribute that saying to my teacher, Saul David Ray. He says it a lot. We have enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. So some of the things coming up in that alignment are as Michael said, Sun and Jupiter coming together, and they come together exact on December 27th. So 2 days after Christmas, the big, beautiful planet Jupiter and the Sun come together exact. And what would you say those energies are when they come together?
That is a lot of optimism and faith and vision of where you want to go. The Sun being what inspires your heart, and Jupiter is getting that passion going. And so this is a beautiful time, can be, to say, I want to do this. And so when you're thinking about cultivating conscious community, really think about what's going to inspire you. We all have our gifts that we've come here to deliver, and each one of you has a passion for that. The more we tune into it, and the more that we cultivate those gifts, the more that we can share them with the planet. And here we have Jupiter, expanded consciousness, radiant self with the Sun energy. So that's the positive conjunction of Sun and Jupiter on the 27th. It's a possibility for overindulgence and being insecure, but let's put that into the category of the old paradigm. That's what's going into the eclipse on the 25th. Let's throw that old insecure, overindulging, greedy, fat king self out the window, and let's go with all of us having expanded consciousness and being radiant selves that time. I would like to add one more person in here, Uranus.
They're people.
They're people. This whole eclipse and really the Sun conjoined Jupiter are trine Uranus this whole time from December 25th to the 27th. And Uranus is all about a stroke of genius in a positive way. So this eclipses are weird anyway, and then Uranus is making it extra weird. And so let's go for the positive spin that something brilliant, something unusual and fantastic could happen through this eclipse. Some may get some spankings at this time because Uranus is delivering of karma when it's conjoined with the Capricorn energy. But if you've been doing the work, if you've been coming in with the vision, it's like revelation. Let's do this. Let's have a stroke of genius to expand our consciousness and be our radiant selves. Yay, done.
We are using these little helpers to help land this, because this is a lot. When you're talking about planets and their connections to each other in the different signs and the different houses, it can be confusing. So we hope that just helps. So that was the Sun and Jupiter coming right next to each other, very much near the galactic center. They were the Sun was just exactly in the galactic center. And if you're not sure of the galactic center, think Milky Way with its big wings going out on either side. And in the center of the Milky Way is that spiral. And that spiral right through the center of it is the galactic center. And the Sun, which does move, contrary to what we think we move around the Sun. Yes, we do. But everything is also moving with the Sun, including the Sun. And it is moving right in front of that galactic center of our Milky Way. So that was a big alignment too. And we're still in the juice of it. I mean, it doesn't move that fast that even when you get this report, most likely on Christmas Day. If you're carving out time for this, that's great. That's what's happening right now in the stars, is a big alignment. I want to go back to eclipse. Can you talk a little bit more about what eclipses do?
When eclipses happen, it's when, this one particularly is a solar eclipse, so the moon will come in between the Earth and the Sun and block out the Sun's rays for a moment on Earth.
And they are also together. They're like together on top of each other, together, blocking each other out. So if you take the energies of that togetherness, the radiant self and emotional intelligence, like let those overlap on each other at this eclipse time. And one thing that you could cut is that insecure self and that childish outburst. Let those cut away. Let those become obsolete and no longer necessary. Of course, we're going to have emotional outbursts in our life, but if we just make that conscious intention to put a little more control to them, that would be a good eclipse let go at this time.
And I'm holding up the South Node. The South Node is this space in space where the eclipse happens. And the South Node, in a positive way, is resolving the past. And for those who are not aware of it, it's repeating the past.
And so at this eclipse time, we want to do this because if we don't, we're going to just repeat the past. And we call those samskaras in Sanskrit. It means the same scar, the same pattern repeats itself lifetime after lifetime until we clear it. So one good thing to do is like sit quietly, light the candles, sit with your intention, put your focus to that galactic center, let the eclipse come through, and then just vow to master those emotions and get control of your ego a little bit and give yourself a little boost of confidence at that time. So many of us are riddled with insecurity, which is really stemmed in fear. And it's a beautiful day with the moon and the sun coming together. The moon is that insecurity when it's not in right way, to let it go. Trust yourself. You are no less than the stars, so there's no reason to play small, and it's time to stand in your radiant self, sun power, and let go of some of that insecurity.
Okay, I'm going to cruise through a couple of these things because they're all related to Mercury. We don't have to touch on each one, but on the 28th, Mercury changes signs out of Sagittarius into Capricorn. And then on the 29th, Mercury will square Chiron, the wound. And then on the 30th, Mercury will trine Uranus, that stroke of genius or spanking energy. And then cruising right along on January 2nd, Mercury will then come together with Jupiter in the sky, that expanded consciousness piece or overindulgence. So we don't have to go through each one, but what we can say most assuredly is from the 28th through January 2nd, communication is essential.
And we use the word assimilation. I'm going to pull that back up again. Assimilation, because we could have used the word communication, and that is absolutely a positive trait of Mercury. But use this time to assimilate it all, like put it all in, communicate with yourself, communicate with others, and make it a thing, not just talk, but make it come into some kind of offering or idea or connection to how it can go back to that cultivating a conscious community. Let your ideas assimilate into action, really. And if we don't, we stand on the fence. We stand in indecisiveness. Should I go with this party? Should I go with that party? Should I do this idea? Should I do that idea? Should I take this job? Should I go with that job? Should I break up with them? Should I not? That's going to drive you bonkers. Assimilate your deep inner knowing using all that magical energy of those aspects with Chiron and Uranus and Jupiter.
All this Capricorn energy says now is not the time to be waffling anymore. It's go ahead and start doing it.
Do it. It's a do it sign.
It's not maybe.
Okay, and then we'll move on to Mars. Mars is going to move into the sign of Capricorn, or Sagittarius. It's been in Scorpio, and it moves in on January 4th. And I really like Mars in Sagittarius because Mars is that a lot of masculine energy, like Michael was describing earlier, a very assertive, a very powerful, a very go get it kind of energy, and it's moving into the sign of Sagittarius, which is the visionary and the truth seeker. And so we can use our strong, powerful selves to seek the truth and to create bigger visions for ourselves and for the good of the whole. So this happens January 4th, and then it's going to trine with Chiron again, so that wound. But remember, trines are very much that healing energy or harmonious energy as a trine. So if we are in alignment with this time, we'll take initiative as the healer. And I think that's all those people out there, and I know there's many of you that are seeing yourselves as healers and know you can be a healer to others. Boom, January 4th is saying, come along and do it. And then January 5th is saying, now is the time. Those two times is a big, big time for you. If not, we stand there and waffle back and forth as victim, and that's destruction, a destructive victim. Like, I'm not good enough, my story is holding me back, and that creates a lot of destructive energy in the planet and in your own soul self. So stay in the high vibration of that. Now we come up to the last two big things on. We're just going to mention, because we'll talk about it more in the next report, the full moon in Cancer. And then that big alignment we talk about is actually predominant in the next report, but Michael will also mention it. But first, let's go to the full moon in Cancer. And I just want to bring up this little visual for you. I'm going to kind of hide out. But maybe you could explain that axis, the Capricorn-Cancer axis.
Sure. So our first eclipse on December 25th is happening here in the sign of Capricorn. And we have the Sun, the Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Venus. By the time this report comes out, will have moved into Aquarius, but she's very close. And the South Node and Mercury will all be around that Capricorn energy. 2 weeks later, the Moon goes around to the North Node, second eclipse. Eclipses always come in twos. The second eclipse is a lunar eclipse, and we won't be able to see that again here in Denver because it happens during the day, but we will feel it. And the North Node is our future, where we're going towards, what we want to evolve into, what we've come here to do in right way. And the energy of Cancer says we've come here this time to bring in intuition, return to the feminine energy, the matriarchy. It's not either or though, it's heal this and bring this. Don't squash this and punish this and reward this. You want both. It's to be balanced. And so the North Node says once we're working on healing the past, let's bring in the future, intuition, working with nature, being in the cycles of the feminine.
So that will be coming up January 10th. That's the full moon in Cancer, and that's where we'll pick up our next report. But we are going to jump 2 days past that just before we conclude this report to January 12th, because that's the big Saturn-Pluto alignment that is going to set the stage for all of 2020.
Saturn and Pluto are two timekeepers for us here on planet Earth. Saturn is measuring things around creating borders and structure and law and judiciousness. And Pluto, which has to do with soul's purpose, also has to do with tearing things down, breaking things apart, and destroying them. And so the energy of building up and destruction are coming together. The last time Pluto and Saturn were conjoined was 1982. That was 38 years ago.
What were you doing in 82?
That was the start of a cycle, and then the cycle went around, and the cycle was halfway done in September 2001. The energy of destruction and the energy of boundaries and borders came around. That was a huge event for us on the planet wide. So whenever Saturn and Pluto are together or apart, there are huge events that happen karmically that affect the whole planet. And now Saturn's come around to meet up with Pluto again in 2020 on January 12th. And because this is such a long cycle, 38 years, it's not that the exact day, January 12th, means something exact is going to happen on January 12th. It's a season. The season started a year ago. We're now at the height of the season, and the season will continue for at least another year.
So this exact connection of these two come together on January 12th, and that's a pretty big time. And then throughout the year, Jupiter is going to come really up close to it as well, and these three together are going to be the flavor of 2020. This is what's going to make it the roaring 20s for sure. And so if you look at the top lines, which is when it's in its highest way, these three big planets, you have expanded consciousness and the soul's purpose, and it's very judicious, so it's fair and in right way. If we do not work with this energy correctly, it looks like overindulgence, ego trips, and very tyrannical. So we want to be working with this energy in the highest way as possible. So the more you make yourself aware of it, the more that you read up on this, learn about it, and even if you don't want to look at it from the astrological perspective, look at it from these energies, like what's my soul's purpose? How do I need to be more in harmony with what is natural law? That's the Saturn piece, clearing your karmas, getting in right way, getting clean. And then expanded consciousness is opening yourself to the bigger, the more, the 30,000 foot perspective of what it is to be a human being on this life, and not just the 401k. So much shift is coming because of these, and these two are January 12th coming together. That's a lot for you guys, and that's not even all of what's happening in these next 2 weeks, but those are the big ones. And we will be doing that overview, as Michael said at the beginning of this, on January 12th, that big day. We are going to do that
2 p.m.
2 p.m. Here at Karma Yoga Center. We're going to have a little overview of what 2020 aspects, the astrology aspects, will be laying out for us. And it's a lot, and it's a lot of potential for good and change and building that conscious community. And what I hope and vision for is that we start to come together, let go of our competitive edge, put love as the staple and the forefront of our existence, work with each other instead of against each other, sharing our gifts and talents so that we can all lift each other up. And we'd like to give a little shout on that note to our brother who passed, took his Mahasamadhi on the solstice, Mr. Ram Dass, and his great quote that is probably one of his more famous lines is, "We're all just walking each other home." And that is essentially what that collective consciousness is all about. So in honor of Baba Ram Dass, we bow to you and we bring our hands together and we say, Namaste.
Namaste.